What time is it? It's the time of the month that we are live on Connetics College. Hello, everyone. We are 9.09er. I'm Sir Irvin Temporal, and with me is Coach Brian Martin Shawson. Every month, we conduct free classes on IELTS, OET, PTE, TOEFL. And we are doing this totally free of charge in order for you to have some ideas on how you can possibly ace the reading and writing subtests of these high stakes English examinations. For those of you who do not know yet, Connetics College is available every Monday at 8 p.m. Philippine time. The objective of this is to conduct free classes on English exams and NCLEX. Every first and third Monday of the month, it's the turn of Connetics partners to teach NCLEX lessons totally free of charge. But every second and fourth Monday of the month, it's the turn of 9.09er and Swoosh to share whatever we know about the four components. So Swoosh is in charge of listening and speaking, whereas 9.09er takes care of writing and reading. The other time we talked about the tips on how you can possibly ace the reading subtest. But for tonight, Sir Brian and I are going to share with you the techniques that we employed when we took the examination and how I was able to get an 8 in IELTS writing. And for Sir Brian, perfect 9 in IELTS writing and perfect 90 over 90 in PTE writing. By the way, we'd like to encourage you to participate. Tag as many friends as you can. Use the comment section because by the end of our Facebook live session for tonight, we're going to identify we're going to identify a lucky winner who's going to go home with a free platinum package. So make sure that you participate and stay until the end of the Facebook live discussion. Now, if ever you know anyone who might be interested in this one, yes, they can watch the recorded version of this as this is going to be available on the Facebook page of Connetics after the live session. So for now, let's greet Sir Brian. How are you over there, Sir Brian?
Doing great, sir. Thank you so much. Hopefully, our audience would be excited to know more about the writing component of the PTE and the IELTS and what techniques they can employ to get a better result in the actual test. This is going to be probably a fun and insightful discussion. So, yeah, tag your friends as well so you can share this session with them and they would also learn from this session as well.
Thank you for that. Now we have more than 60 live viewers. Let's ask our live viewers, where are you right now so that we would know how to properly greet you. Is there anyone watching live tonight here in the Philippines, like anyone from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, or do we have anyone based in the Middle East? More often than not, we always have live viewers from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Oman. Or is there anyone here based in other parts of the world, like Africa or the entire Americas? Let us know so that we can properly greet you. Okay, so let's begin. Marky Arcales just greeted us. Hello and hi to you, Marky. Now, Marky, if ever you have plans of going to the United States of America, but you have not made any single step or action, well, to jumpstart your application, all you have to do is to visit cusa.link/niner, and you will be asked to uh, upload your resume, your curriculum vitae, and expect that in a few days' time, there are representatives from Connetics USA Nursing who are going to coordinate with you in order for you to know your options in going to the United States. Okay, what about the others? Fredly Behar is watching all the way from Qatar. So, good afternoon to our dear friends in the Middle East. We also have live viewers from the Philippines, like Marian is in Luzon, Jean is in San Juan. Another one is watching from Qatar. It's Tin An. We have my fellow Mindanaonons, R.L. Lee. Another one from the northern part of the Philippines, Hilbert Ocampo, Cagayan Valley. By the way, Hilbert, good news for you. You don't have to travel all the way to Manila or Baguio just to take your IELTS examination, because recently we have announced that we are opening our very own IELTS testing center in Tugigarao, Cagayan Valley. The examination in Northern Luzon, Tugigarao in particular, is available 3 days a week. That's every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And we offer a free review, by the way. All you have to do is to let the people of Connetics know, so that you will be endorsed to us and you don't have to pay a single centavo if you are qualified to enjoy the sponsorship of Connetics. Now, who else do we have here? Pepper Potts Start says, love listening to you always. Thank you for the appreciation and the compliments. What about Heidi? Heidi, maayong gabi. She's based in Cebu. Pepper is watching all the way from Tarlac, which is just next to Pangasinan. And same instruction, we have a new testing center in Dagupan, Pangasinan. So if ever you have plans of taking the IELTS, then no need to travel to Baguio or Manila, because all you have to do is climb up north and voila, when you are in Dagupan, our testing center offers examinations every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Elsbeth, wait a minute. Van Dam is watching from Bukidnon. Elsbeth, Bulacan. Praxedes is again from the Middle East. Good afternoon to you over there in Kuwait. John is watching from Dasmariñas, Cavite. Yes, we also have a testing center in Cavite. Cherry Vergara said she is interested in PTE. So nothing to worry, because the purpose of tonight's discussion is to talk about both IELTS and PTE essay writing. Before we go into detail, I'd like to initially ask Sir Brian, for someone who has taken both examinations, what are the similarities between IELTS writing and PTE writing? Take it away, Sir Brian.
Yes, that's a very good question, sir. And I know a lot of people are probably wondering, is the PTE so strikingly different from the IELTS and vice versa? So let me just talk about the similarities of these tests first before I go to the differences. When it comes to the second part of your IELTS, and also for PTE essay writing, or write essay as we call it in the Pearson test of English, they're actually very much alike. And they're so alike that even the instructions for both of these tests are identical. For example, you have agree or disagree, you have discuss both views, or in PTE, it's discuss both sides and give your opinion. There are also open ended questions that you will get in the PTE and the IELTS. So they're very, very similar to each other. Now, probably the difference is that there's a certain time limit in IELTS that is much longer than the PTE. IELTS is actually going to be for an hour, and that's for both writing task one and writing task two, because you get two tasks in IELTS. And you should actually work on the first task of the examination and write about 20 minutes, whereas writing task two, you should accomplish in 40 minutes. Now, 40 minutes is actually a significantly longer amount of time compared to what you will be given in the PTE, because for PTE essay writing or write essay, you only have 20 minutes to accomplish the entire test, and that's it. Also, when it comes to the word requirement, they're kind of different, because the IELTS will require a minimum of 250 words with no ceiling word count. So you can write as many words as you want, there will be no ceiling. But for the PTE, the word requirement is 200 to 300 words, which means that you should not get any shorter than 200 words, but you shouldn't also write a longer essay, longer than 300 words in the test, because there's a word limit. If you do, you will get a penalty or a deduction in the examination. So I think those are the differences between the two. But when it comes to the first task of IELTS and PTE in general, the first task of PTE, they're actually very different from each other. While IELTS writing task one can be either a letter writing test for general training, and for academic test takers, most of you will be writing a statistical or process report. for PTE, you will not probably be, no, you will never be writing, you will never write anything like that. Instead, what you will be provided will be a passage, a lengthy passage, and you will have to summarize that. And that's called summarized written text. You're supposed to write a minimum of 5 words, no more than 75 words, but you're supposed to only write one sentence to summarize the entire passage that you will be reading. Sometimes the passage can be very long, while at times it can be 150 words only. Sometimes it gets to 300, so it can be very lengthy, and you have to summarize that and make sure that you're writing only one sentence, 5 to 75 words in length. So I think when it comes to the first task of the IELTS and the PTE, they're actually very different from each other. But again, we're talking about the essay writing component, so they're so identical when it comes to the second part.
Thank you for that, Coach Brian. Here's my take. According to Coach Brian, primarily IELTS and PTE are the same when it comes to the writing subtest. You're required to come up with an essay. So usually you're given a theme or a topic, and based on this, you're supposed to write 250 words minimum in IELTS, but for PTE, it's 200 to 300 words. It's just that, what's the main difference between the two? If in IELTS you're given approximately 40 minutes to come up with an essay, for PTE, it's half of that. So for PTE, in 20 minutes, you have to come up with 200 to 300 words. Having said this one, let me ask Sir Brian, because he has taken both IELTS and PTE. Who among the candidates would you rather recommend to take IELTS, and who among our US bound nurses are recommended to take PTE based on your experience in the last 14 years of teaching English exams?
Well, thank you. That's a very important question to ask, because a lot of people are considering to take the PTE or the IELTS. But one of the primary determinants on whether it is better for you to take the IELTS or the PTE is your location. Because not in
Mm-hmm.
all of the provinces and all of the locations can you find the PTE, unlike IELTS, which is probably available everywhere. The PTE is only available in a fewer number of testing sites. So that's number one. If you don't want to travel, you don't want to spend a lot of money going from one place to another just to take the examination, you should probably consider the IELTS. Number two, it is also very important that you're computer literate, and not just computer literate, but proficient in the use of computers when you are to take the PTE. PTE doesn't have a paper delivered version, unlike the IELTS. So if you're the more traditional kind of person, you cannot type very fast. You commonly make mistakes when typing answers on the screen, or you easily get strained or stressed when you're looking at the screen for an extended duration of time. When you experience significant eye strain when you're looking at texts on the computer, then perhaps you are not going to benefit from taking the PTE, because the PTE has a certain demographic of people it's targeting. And one of the requirements definitely is for you to be able to adequately use the computer during the test. Now, the IELTS is a more general examination that has a paper delivered version. So, if you're the more traditional kind of person, then you might want to take the IELTS. If you also want convenience, because it's available practically everywhere, and with 9.09er, we're also bringing the tests closer to you in partnership with the British Council, uh, you would probably be able to benefit so much from the IELTS because it's just globally um, available, and you can take it anywhere. Right. So, aside from that, so I've mentioned the first one, which is the location of the test, and the second one would be your proficiency when it comes to the use of computers, your typing speed, your accuracy, and all that. You also have to take into account your ability to memorize a lot of things. If you're not the kind of studious person who wants to study a lot of different types of questions, the PTE might not be the perfect exam for you, because IELTS is more simplistic in that regard. The PTE has so many question types and you have to learn how to answer all of those questions because every one of them will come out in the test. Unlike in the IELTS, sometimes there are some question types that are not found in your test papers or your test questionnaires when you are taking IELTS on computer. Even if there are plenty of different questions, sometimes only a few will come out in the actual exam. So there's actually less panic, and you don't really have to gain mastery with all of the types of questions that you are going to encounter in the test. So I think those three factors are the primary considerations as to whether you will take the IELTS or you are better off taking the PTE.
Okay, guys, if you have just joined us, I'd like to recap the main points that Sir Brian said in the last few minutes. And now, who are recommended to take PTE versus who are recommended to take IELTS? Let's begin with who are recommended to take PTE. Number one, those who live in Makati and Cebu. That's because PTE examination is only available in these two cities. No PTE examination is available in the entire Mindanao. No PTE in Western and Eastern Visayas. No PTE in the entire Northern, Central, and Southern Luzon. So if you don't want to travel, then take IELTS instead. So again, number one, who are recommended to take PTE? Those who live in Makati and Cebu. Number two, who are recommended to take PTE? Those who do not want to talk to a human being. Yes, you heard me right, because in PTE, you merely talk to a computer. Whereas in IELTS, you get to talk to a human, a Homo sapiens, and we call this your IELTS speaking examiner. FYI though, the speaking subtest in the IELTS right now does not make use of the face-to-face mode. The first option of the testing centers is always via video call speaking. In the event that the internet connection is intermittent, that's the only time that they send a human examiner to the testing center to conduct the speaking subtest. So I'd like to repeat who are recommended to take PTE: those who live in Makati and Cebu, and number two, those who would like to talk to a computer instead of a human being, but who are recommended to take the IELTS. Number one, those who are looking for a paper based version. Why? That's because for PTE, it's only computer delivered. There is no PTE on paper, whereas there is IELTS on paper. Number two, those people who do not have a credit card, go for IELTS. Why? Because PTE strictly requires a credit card, Visa or MasterCard to pay for the examination. But for IELTS, even if you don't have a bank account, but you have GCash, then yes, you can use GCash to pay for your IELTS examination fee. And one thing more, if ever you are that kind of person who is easily distracted by the noise around you, then go for IELTS. Why? Because in IELTS, you are basically on your own when you talk, no other person inside the room. Because we have heard in other computer delivered examinations, there are 15 candidates inside the laboratory and 15 people are talking all at the same time. So imagine that you're competing with the voice of 14 other candidates. But ask yourself, are you the kind of person who's totally okay and fine even if everyone around you is noisy and you can still concentrate? Then go for other English examinations that are computer delivered. But if you want peace and quiet, you want a calm environment when you take the examination, then IELTS is the key. So we have answered quite some important questions, like number one, similarities and differences between IELTS and PTE. And number two, who are recommended to take IELTS and who are recommended to take PTE. Now, let's move on to the nitty gritty details of essay writing. So, we'd like to ask Sir Brian, basically, what are the types of questions that come out in both IELTS writing and PTE writing? I mean, is there a agree or disagree type, or discuss both views type, or do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, something like that? Let's find out by asking Sir Brian.
Well, IELTS actually has more question types for the writing component. That's for certain. But there is significant overlap when it comes to these two exams. In the PTE and in the IELTS, there are similar question types that come out. And these are one, The one-sided essays, like do you agree or disagree, or to what extent do you agree or disagree? That's one. And then we also have the discuss both views and give your opinion question. In the PTE, it's discuss both sides and give your opinion. And then we also have open ended questions in which you're supposed to provide an answer to questions that are not answerable by yes or no. And then for IELTS, we have do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? A very special type of question, but that is not actually asked in the PTE. So these are generally the types of questions that you can encounter in the test. And it can be very random. You wouldn't really know what's going to come out in the test. So it's really important that you are able to master the skills required to write for just about any type of question you will ever encounter in the test. Now, the good news is for IELTS test takers and for PTE test takers, the way you're going to write the essay would be precisely identical. It's going to be very much the same because the test formats are actually very identical as well. So you don't really need to study a different format if you're transitioning from IELTS to PTE and vice versa, because they're very similar to each other when it comes to the essay writing component.
Sound check. Okay, thank you for that, Coach Brian. Now, if ever you are wondering, okay, so there are different types of questions like agree or disagree, discuss both views so the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. There is nothing to worry because the 9.09er dashboard is filled with writing tasks. In fact, this is what we did. In the last 17 years of teaching IELTS, my first year as a private tutor and then 16 years operating Niner, what 9.09er did is to gather all these questions such that now for our database, we have more than 300 of the actual examination questions that came out ever since I started teaching IELTS in 2006. And what's good, with this database, we actually asked some of our top performing coaches, the ones with a 7.5, the ones with an 8 in writing, to come up with models. So thankfully, Connetics is sponsoring the review of their nurses going to the United States of America. All you have to do is to let Connetics know if you're interested in IELTS or PTE or OET, and Connetics will endorse you to us so that we would know which particular dashboard to activate. But whether it's IELTS or OET or PTE, just go to your dashboard and you will notice the wealth of resources that are available. So we provide you, number one, not just the actual questions, but number two, sampled responses so that you have an idea what you're going to write if the actual question has something to do with education or technology and so on. So now you're basically acquainted with the types of questions. Let's move on to the four criteria. In IELTS, there's task response, there's coherence and cohesion, there's vocabulary and grammar. I'd like to ask Sir Brian, what about in PTE? Are these the same criteria or are there other criteria that come out exclusively in PTE but they are not being assessed in the IELTS? Sir Brian?
Okay, so in IELTS, we have task attainment, coherence and cohesion, vocabulary, and lexical resource. And I would have to say that although these criteria are not exactly the same as the ones that are going to be scored by the computer, again, the computer is the one who's going to give you a score and not a human rater. I think there are similarities in how the test is going to be scored. Now, to give you a very comprehensive discussion on how you're going to be scored by the computer or the AI, you will be graded based on the following. Number one is your content. If you're able to adequately deal with the task prompt or respond to the question, that is your content score. You get, I think, 3 points for that. You can get as low as zero, and you can get the highest grade, which is 3 points. Apart from that, it is very important that you follow the correct format. So, form is also marked, and that's for 2 points. Format is actually whether you were able to write 200 to 300 words or you did not exceed the word limit and you didn't actually write below the word requirement. So that's actually your form. And if your essay is actually written in all capital letters for PTE, that's going to impact your score as well. If there are no punctuations in your essay, or you're writing in points or numbers, and you're writing very short sentences, that's also going to affect your form in the test. And then the third one is development, structure, and coherence. So this is very similar to the IELTS. Like if you're able to write in a good logical structure, then you will get a good score here. It's, I think, 2 points as well. Zero is the lowest, and then you get 2 points, which is the highest grade for development, structure, and coherence. Then you have, of course, grammar, which is just the same as that of IELTS. You get 2 points for that. But additionally, you have general linguistic range, which talks about the smooth mastery of a wide range of language features to be able to formulate your thoughts precisely, give emphasis, differentiate, and try to clarify things so that your writing is not ambiguous. So that's your general linguistic range, and you get 2 points for that. And then finally, you have vocabulary and spelling, 2 points each. Vocabulary is definitely the range of words that you're using in your PTE, not necessarily the sophisticated lexical repertoire that you have, but more of like the accuracy of the words that you're using and the variety of the words that you're able to present in your essay. And your spelling, of course, is graded in the PTE, and that's for 2 points as well. So try not to misspell words, or if you're not sure about the spelling of a particular word, it's best to avoid it because you're going to get the penalty for that. Okay, so all of those will be at for a total of 15 points. So for the essay writing component, you get 15 points. For IELTS, you get individual band scores for the four different criteria that you will be graded for. So IELTS is actually easier to mark because there are just four criteria by which you're going to be judged or graded. Whereas when you're taking the PTE, the computer will actually go through all of these criteria that I've mentioned a while ago to award a score to you.
Thank you for that, Coach Brian. So now I'd like to greet our 160 live viewers on Facebook. Let us know your questions, anything you'd like to ask about IELTS, OET, PTE, TOEFL, but we'll try to limit our responses to reading and writing related questions because they are the ones assigned to 9.09er. Now, if you have just joined us in the first few minutes, we talked about the similarities and differences between IELTS and PTE writing at the same time. We gave recommendations who among the candidates must take IELTS and who among the candidates must take PTE. Sir Brian also mentioned that whether it's IELTS or PTE, they are basically two main criteria that examiners are going to use in assessing your performance. And what are they? Number one, the content aspect, and the second one, the English component. So when we speak of content, make sure that your answers are responsive to the question. You must be able to provide examples that support your argument and reason, but it's not enough that you write a lot. Make sure it is organized, it's systematic, structured, and easy to follow. And you can achieve this one if you are going to use connective words from beginning to the end of your essay. What about the English components? Apparently, your vocabulary must have a wide range. It's not enough that the words are correct. Make sure that the words are also varied. We try everything just to make sure that we avoid repetition. And please do not force yourself to use idiomatic expressions or figures of speech because these are not required to pass your high stakes English examinations. Now, what about the last component, which is grammar? Make sure that you're familiar with the use of prepositions and that your verb tenses are consistent from beginning to end. And you must also ensure that your subject and verb agree with each other. Now, I'm going to ask Sir Brian, since he mentioned that there are a lot of communicative criteria in PTE as compared to the IELTS. What about the use of templates? Because every single day we receive these messages. So for those of you who do not know yet, I am the person behind 9.09er Facebook page. I am the one responding to the messages from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So if you have questions and you send them over to 9.09er Facebook page, I'm actually the one responding to your concerns. And Sir Brian is also the person behind 9.09er email, which is training at nineronlinereview.com. That's why, without you knowing, you're already communicating with us every single day, because we are not just your lecturers, we are also your customer service representatives. And because we are so much exposed to these messages and concerns, there's this single question that we encounter literally every day. What about the templates? Do you think which templates are 9.09er teaching in order for us to pass the writing subtest? That's the typical question that we encounter. So I'm going to ask Sir Brian right here. When you took the test, because you got perfect 9 in IELTS writing and you got 90 over 90 in PTE writing, did you use templates? And if yes, what were these templates? Or at the end of the day, are you the kind of teacher who wouldn't really recommend templates at all? Your thoughts, please, Sir Brian.
Okay, honestly, for a time, templates worked fabulously. But you know that the AI is a system that learns. So over time, since a lot of people are using the same templates over and over again, the ones that they got from the internet, the computer is now tagging them to be unnatural. So it is not advisable to use templates in the test. Well, you can probably still try to structure your essay in a certain way and try to probably prepare what words you can possibly write, but they should be organic. They should be from you and not copied from a certain source. If you can create a way by which you can write your sentences, put arguments, cite examples, or perhaps talk about causes and effects in different ways for PTE, because that's going to be more expedient or a lot more convenient for you to do when you're taking the examination and you don't really have a lot of time. Then do so. And at 9.09er, we help you to craft your own way of writing your sentences, starting your sentences, connecting your sentences, and most importantly, writing very quickly or expediently in the test. So you wouldn't have to rely on scripted phrases that you see online. I do not advocate for, and PTE will never actually tell you to use templates in the examination because they're usually going to be recognized by the system anyway, and you will get penalties for them. Maybe if you're aiming for a low score, you can use templates. They will help you to just fulfill the task. But if you're expecting to get 65, 50 and over, or even a 79 in the test, which are very high scores, you cannot rely on templates alone. You will have to utilize natural, organic English.
Very well said, Sir Brian. So, in the side of IELTS, though, I just want people to know that these examinations adjust time and time again. So, Sir Brian mentioned that for quite some time, templates worked, but human examiners can now easily recognize the overused templates that candidates are using. Therefore, instead of helping you get the required band score, it's going to pull your scores down. Now, AI or artificial intelligence is not necessarily uh how do I put it? It's not an idiot, right? I mean, Siri is powered by AI. Waze is also powered by AI. They know a lot, which means to say they can easily recognize templates. So if you're just aiming for, let's say, 30 or 40, then templates are fine. But the United States of America does not accept 30 or 40 in PTE. USA requires 50 and better in PTE. So say goodbye to templates, because moving forward, it is best if you come up with language that is organic, not pushed nor forced. Now, let's take a look at the different parts of the writing task. There is an introduction, there's body, and conclusion. So in class, we usually mention that introduction will make or break your writing task. Why? How are you going to expect the computer? How are you going to expect the examiner to give you a fair mark in writing if the first sentence already contains a grammatical mistake? Try your best to make sure that your introduction is as clean as a whistle so that the examiner might continue to move forward with your output, considering it something interesting to read. Why? Because in the first place, the intro is clean. In the same way, for PTE, we require the candidates to come up with a smooth introduction. But, Sir Brian, do you have any tips on how candidates can come up with a good introduction without really running out of time? Because we have noticed that a lot of PTE candidates and IELTS candidates are not able to finish the examination on time, probably because they spent more than 10 minutes in the introduction alone. But for someone who can finish a writing task in 6 to 8 minutes, what's your recommendation for these candidates who find it difficult to write their introduction?
Good question. Because a lot of people are struggling with the writing test because they can't write a good intro. The best approach is to just probably paraphrase the topic and the question. So if you're provided a task description or a question for both the PTE or the IELTS, just use that as a leverage for you to be able to compose an introduction, maybe 2 sentences long, that actually introduces the topic and at the same time talks about the points of view that you're going to be writing about. And if a stand or a position is necessary, just write it clearly in your introduction and you're good to go. There's absolutely no need for you to write sayings, quotations, cliches, or anything that is memorized in your examination to draw the examiner into reading your work, because examiners will be interested already as long as your English is good, right? So your English is the primary consideration of the examiner and not your creativity. So you're not supposed to, and you're not advised to, use creative expressions in the first part of your examination. And also, try to make sure that you're not copying or lifting everything from the task description. So, paraphrasing means that you're going to change up some of the words. You might actually be able to convey the same message, but you're not using exactly the same terminologies you can find in the question. If you copy the question, you're going to get a severe penalty already for both the IELTS and the PTE. So, again, paraphrasing is very important. In the case of PTE, it is not important for you to use sophisticated language, so try to keep it simple. Remember, you only have 20 minutes to work on your essay for PTE, so you have to launch immediately into your introduction and continuously write for 20 minutes to accomplish the task. Do not spend so much time writing a creative introduction that will actually not give you extra credit in the test anyway and might put you at a greater risk of not completing your test altogether. Yet, you cannot skip the intro, both for the PTE and for the IELTS, because your coherence will be greatly affected if you do not employ proper paragraphing in the test and you do not demonstrate that you can organize your thoughts into different paragraphs. Finally, my last tip for the intro is not to make it too long. You shouldn't write an introduction that is longer than your body. Can you imagine if the intro is the longest paragraph in your entire composition? It's just not making sense. So make sure that your introduction is slightly shorter than your body paragraphs. Maybe put all of the information that you want to write in your essay in the body, but when it comes to the introduction, just keep it short and sweet. Just present the topic and state your position. That'll be absolutely fine and will already comply with most of the requirements of the test.
Thank you, Coach Brian. I'd like to give you my advice as well. So earlier, Sir Brian was talking about making your intro relatively short and not too long. So my recommendation, and this is usually what I mention in class, it is best if you're going to try 2 to 3 sentences for your introduction. Guys, what we are saying are more of recommendations. They are not requirements, because the truth of the matter is, whether it's IELTS, OET, PTE, or TOEFL, there is no one correct way. We don't want to say this is wrong, this is correct. Instead, what we tell the students is Here is a structure that will help you finish the examination on time and will help you meet the required band score. So, for the introduction, let me recommend 2 to 3 sentences. But because this is who I am, then I would rather that you write 3 sentences. Why? The first sentence is usually for the general topic or main topic. Say, for instance, what's the main topic? Is it related to education or technology or environment or government? Now, the second sentence is usually the specific topic. Say, for instance, the topic has something to do with gadgets such as cars, refrigerators, and television have become must haves. And people think that this is beneficial to society. Do you agree or disagree? So, what you can probably write in your first sentence is the main topic, which is technology. Now, when you go to the second sentence, perhaps you can focus on the specific topic. And what is that? The dependence or reliance of people on technology. Something more specific as compared to the general idea of the introduction. But what about the third sentence? It's best if you're going to mention your stand. And what is the stand? The one that says whether you agree or disagree with something, because it gives the examiner an idea of what to expect in the body of your writing task. So, ladies and gentlemen, a quick recap. First sentence, best to mention the main topic. Second sentence, the specific topic. And third sentence, your stand. So before I turn you over to Sir Brian for the discussion of the body, now we have 170 live viewers on Facebook. Hello, good evening, good afternoon, Middle East, good morning, Europe, America, wherever you are. You are welcome to join the Connetics College live classes every Monday at 8 p.m. So, if ever you have just joined us and you're in the middle of your decision making, should I choose the United States of America? If yes, all you have to do is to visit cusa.link/niner. So this is the link that you have to visit in order to start your application to the United States. Within a few days, expect a call or an email from the representatives of Connetics in order for you to know what your qualifications are going to bring you, what options you might have in the United States of America. So let me just take a look at some of the questions here, okay? Venita Joseph asks, what about the format of OET? If IELTS and PTE writing are identical, in which you are required to come up with an essay, for OET, no essay writing, no statistical writing, but instead, you are required to write a referral letter endorsing one patient to another healthcare practitioner. Say, for instance, dear community health nurse, I am endorsing to your care this patient with a diagnosis of this and that. You mentioned a bit of medical history and what the nurse is supposed to do to take care of the patient. So that's how OET writing works. Okay. Here's a question from Jack Quet. How much is IELTS and how much is PTE? For the IELTS examination, it's fixed at 12,350 pesos. For PTE, it's not fixed though because it's in US dollars. So 220 US dollars. But please do not consult Google because whatever Google tells you as exchange rate, that is not the rate of your credit card companies. When you check the bill, when PTE bill appears on your credit card, chances are it's 12,000 to 13,000 pesos depending on the charge of your credit card company. So remember, in US dollars, it's 220, but in pesos, it's around 12,000 to 13,000. Now, here's a question from, one moment, please. It's from Limuel Abando. Is it required to follow intro, body 1, body 2, conclusion? Okay, it's not as if 9.09 requires or Cambridge forces you to come up with a particular format, but what we are trying to do is to help you come up with an organized output that you can finish on time, something that's responsive to the question, and that the English is relatively clean. So later, we'll move on to body. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the other comments. So, Bona and Camille just tagged their friends. Thank you so much for sharing. And Ryan Dominic Abrogar just greeted. Congratulations. Happy anniversary. Thank you so much for that wonderful greeting. Now, let's move on to the body. We still have 160 live viewers. The body is arguably the longest part of the writing task. What Sir Brian and I would usually recommend is for you to write 2 or 3 paragraphs. But I'd like to ask Sir Brian now, when would you recommend someone to write 2 long paragraphs, or when is it best to write 3 short paragraphs in the body of the essay?
For me, the basis is the number of arguments that you have, because the paragraphs should have a theme. So you shouldn't be discussing so many different things in a single paragraph. So if you have a lot of arguments to write, you don't want to enumerate them, because IELTS by nature, and if you're going to look at the definition of this test, is not actually an enumerative exam. It is more of a discursive essay, so it means that there should be some sort of discussion that should happen in the test. In the same fashion, PTE is also the same. It requires you to discuss a particular topic, cite examples to support your answer. So if you are going to write everything in a single paragraph, say for example, you have 5 reasons or 5 arguments, and you're putting all of that in just a single paragraph, it's going to show that the topics don't have compartments. There is no central theme per paragraph. There is no topic or main topic per paragraph, and you're just actually writing, listing down all of those arguments that you're thinking about, and that can significantly affect your test performance in the exam. So what you want to do is, if you have maybe 2 to 3 arguments, write 1 paragraph for each one of them. Write maybe some reasons. You can also cite some examples. You can talk about the impact of this particular argument of yours to the and how it will relate back to the question, and probably write maybe 3 sentences per paragraph about that particular topic only, and not all of the things that you can think about. In these exams, you don't have to be the smartest. You don't really have to have so many arguments. You don't really need 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 arguments. You just need a few very strong and persuasive arguments that you're going to discuss thoroughly. And that's going to already give you a very high score. In my actual experience taking the PTE and the IELTS, in my first IELTS examination, in which I got a 9.0, I actually wrote 3 paragraphs in the body. And what is the precise reason for that? Because my essay question back then was a 3-part open ended question with 3 questions. What are the causes? What are the effects? And what are the solutions? So I had 3 questions. I just answered them 1 paragraph at a time. So I just wrote 1 paragraph for the causes, one for the effects, and one for the solutions. Now, when I took the PTE, I just wrote 2 paragraphs in the body. And I would probably suggest the same for most of you who are taking the PTE. And the reason for that is there's a tendency for you to go a bit overboard and over length when you're writing a lot of paragraphs in the test. So I just made sure to write 2 different arguments. And then I wrote my reasons, my examples, and then split the 2 different arguments into a couple of paragraphs, placed individual compartments for them, and yeah, I waited until the time was up, because I was able to accomplish the test much earlier. And that's something that I would also advise when you take the PT. So again, think about how many arguments you have, and that's going to determine how many body paragraphs you will be writing in the test.
For our 170 live viewers on Facebook, Sir Brian gave you his tips. Now let me give you mine. In the body, this is something that Sir Brian already mentioned earlier. No to quotes and sayings. Why? The explanation is they are not your own words, not original. If you keep on using cliches or a dodge from other speakers or other philosophers who came before you, that's not your original language. So please, moving forward, avoid Time is gold. Health is wealth. Practice makes perfect. The family is the basic unit of society, or no man is an island. It's best that you please put them to the back of your mind or totally forget about them because they won't help your cause in any English examination for that matter. Not just IELTS, not just PTE, but in all English exams. Now, you're going to ask me, sir, but I really want to write no man is an island. Instead of you doing that, why don't you write something like this? Social interaction is the essence of humanity. Why? Your point is no man is an island. You want to say that humans are supposed to socialize. So, social interaction is the essence of humanity. That's also sophisticatedly written using your own words, expressing the idea no man is an island, but you are not using the overused quotation. So, moving forward, think of your own words and please never use quotes and sayings in writing. What about the examples? IELTS examiners and PTE computer or AI prefers it when you come up with something that the computer does not encounter all the time or the examiners don't get to read often. So, as much as you can, try to provide global examples. Why? Because the computer noticed that majority of the examples being presented are related to India and the Philippines because majority of the ones taking PTE are based in the Philippines and India. So if your output is as common as the other Indians or the other Filipinos, then you do not expect to get a grade of 50 or higher in PTE. And speaking of 50, I have just answered the question of Lorely Rosario Aguilar. What is the required score for PTE? Guys, in IELTS, this is what I love most about this English examination because their CGFNS is just looking at two. One is your speaking grade, and the other one is the overall band score. Speaking must be 7, overall band must be 6.5, regardless of your grade in listening, reading, and writing. So, as you can see, it doesn't really matter whatever grade you get for listening, reading, and writing in the IELTS. For PTE, though, you are required to focus not just on speaking, but equally on all four components: listening, reading, writing, speaking, because you need to get minimum of 50 per subtest. On top of that, your overall band score in PTE must be higher at 55. So, in IELTS, the pressure is just, okay, 7 in speaking, 6.5 overall band. But in PTE, the pressure is 5 times as much because you need to get a particular grade in listening, reading, writing, speaking, plus the overall band score. Whereas in IELTS, you don't have to think of the 3 subtests because you just focus on speaking and overall. Now, we have another question here. Would you suggest writing the pros and cons of your preferred answer or just stick with the pros? So this is a question that requires a straightforward approach. Personally, I would rather that you focus on both pros and cons if you want to write or if you want to reach 250 words in IELTS or at least 200 words in PTE, most especially if it requires you to tackle both sides of the story. However, for agree or disagree, you are not required to tackle the other side for as long as you're able to prove your point and mention that the arguments you have written are the reasons that you have written are supportive of your arguments or your answer to the question. Now, we have talked about the tips on how to write the intro and the body. But what about conclusion? We still have 8 minutes left, so maybe Sir Brian can share with us how to write a conclusion that will provide a great closure or an ending to the writing task.
Um, make it summative. Don't write additional information in your conclusion because it will not look as if it is the end of your essay and it will look like an extension of your body instead. So make it summative. Summarize your key points if you have time, or if you don't have time, just probably write a couple of sentences, up to 3 sentences max, to try to reiterate your stand or to probably put the major arguments that you've written in your body. Do not anymore write anything brand new in your conclusion. Do not write ideas that you haven't been able to write in your body because again, examiners or the computer might actually think it's not yet the end of your essay, and you will get severe penalties for that as well. Writing a conclusion is actually quite important because it closes the entire essay and makes it actually very cohesive. It ties all loose ends together. So make sure that even if it's the last sentence or the last couple of sentences that you will be writing in the examination, you're taking good care of your conclusion and you're writing something that is impactful. Also, do not write your recommendations for the future in the conclusion or your suggestions. You should put them in the body instead. Just make sure that the conclusion is just a summary. And that's going to make everything very cohesive.
The conclusion is short, therefore, the discussion for the conclusion is also short. More often than not, two sentences are enough in the conclusion. So, if you are thinking of new ideas, if you're thinking of examples, make sure that they're included in the body, but avoid them in the conclusion because that's just anticlimactic. Now, we'd like to thank everyone who joined us in the last hour. Time flies by so fast. And voila! It's been an hour already. Before we announce the lucky winner, we'd like to invite you guys to watch the Facebook live sessions of Connetics. So every Friday, there's what we call Onwards and Upwards show. And Connetics is tackling all sorts of topics concerning the new immigrants or anything related to the process of going to the United States. Now, every Monday, at 8 p.m., it's Connetics College. So there are four institutions involved here. There's iPass, there's Aspire RN, there's 9.09er, and Swoosh. So iPass and Aspire RN take turns in talking about the next generation and NCLEX. So it's their turn every Monday and rather every first and third Monday of the month. Now every second and fourth Monday of the month, it's the turn of the English Review Center partners of Connecticut. So it's Swoosh every second Monday, and it's 9.09er every fourth Monday of the month. So all you have to do is to go online at 8 p.m. every Monday and rest assured that there is a free class coming from Connetics Care of the partners of Connetics USA Nursing. Now, it's time for us to announce the lucky winner. Earlier, we mentioned that we are encouraging you to use the comment section, greet, share, and voila, we'll just have to identify a lucky winner and give you a free subscription to our platinum package. And for tonight, personally, I've selected Limuel Abando. So congratulations to you. Please message me tonight, but I'll respond tomorrow. My personal name, my personal account on Facebook is Irvin Neil Temporal. I've been up since 6 a.m. That's why I'll go off to bed right after this one and will respond to your message tomorrow. So once again, congratulations, Limuel Abando. For now, we'd like to thank Miss Melanes, Miss Lashana, Miss Tanya, Miss Jennifer, everyone at Connetics. You're doing such a great job. So, guys, if you have not started anything yet, just visit cusa.link/niner. And who knows that this might be the start of your road to your American dream. So once again, thank you for your time, and we'll see you on the fourth Monday of July. Okay, bye everyone.